Good morning, guys. Today is Tuesday. Today I'm going to meet with the Scag rep. We're going to go pick up a 61-inch CHEETAH. They put a mulch kit on it for me. Yo! What? Oh, God, no. Thanks, though, man. I don't want no donuts, man. I can't be having that stuff. I had a fatty liver, and my cholesterol was 261. And I know that's supposed to be bad, but you know what? The dude was so mad. The doctor was so mad when I was just like, I don't want to take any medications. I just want to like change the way I eat. And he's like, but you know what? I changed the way that I ate. My liver enzymes were almost at 300 instead of 20. They've come down to normal. My cholesterol just in a few months came down to being super awesomely normal. So you are what you eat, man. That's for sure. So anyway, we're gonna go out here. We're gonna go to this we're gonna go to the Scag dealer. We're gonna meet the Scag rep. Really cool guy. And we're gonna take this Scag for a week. They reached out and asked if we could do a review on it, and obviously they're not gonna give me the mower, which I would gladly take and keep, but they're just gonna give it to me for a week to try it out, because I said I couldn't give an honest review on the machine unless I had it long enough to review it. You know, it's not like a weed eater or something. So mower is a whole different ball game. So we're going to, here I go again. I have this in my ear. I'm just always on the phone. So we're gonna go try this machine out, and I'm gonna tell them what I honestly think about it. I've heard, you know, I've ridden Scags and everything, but I haven't ridden anything in the last probably 4 years, probably 4 years. So I'm willing to give it a try and take a look. I do, you know, I love my Hustler mowers. I haven't had any issues. No starters been replaced, nothing. I just replaced the belt at 620 hours. The only thing that I've had issues with is normal things like tires. You know, that has nothing to do with the mower though. But as far as the mower itself, not one hiccup. So I'd be interested to check out this Scag and see what it has to offer, see what it's like for the week. So we got a long drive to get to Fleming Island, so we're gonna do this on the Stone Creek condo property. So let's get there and meet the guys. All right, guys. Hey, we are at Ag Pro here in Middleburg in Jacksonville, Florida. But well, it's Middleburg, but everything around here is Jacksonville. And this is Ken. He is a Scag rep.
Howdy.
And today we are looking at this 61-inch CHEETAH, and he's going to give us some info about it, because this is the first time that I've been around a CHEETAH. Actually, it's the first time I've been around a Scag in probably 4 years. So he's going to give us some info.
Well,
and
the CHEETAH, the reason it stands out to me and some of the main features is it has a double tubular solid one-piece frame throughout the mower. It's got a 16-mile-an-hour ground speed with a high and a low for the transmission. The actual gas tanks hold 15 gallons. This is a 35 Kohler EFI. I'm not thinking we're going to get a full day of mowing out of one tank of gas on this thing. The other claim to fame on it, the other big feature is going to be the suspension system. Right now it's set in a firm position, but all you're really doing on this when you adjust this arm is you're adjusting the idler, the shock absorber under here that allows you to reposition it so that it changes the comfort of the ride. What that shock absorber is doing is it's isolating the entire seat and foot platform from the mower.
I'll say that's pretty sick right there.
So there's very little moving components involved. It's patented. You look at some of the competition, they've got 4 of these wrapped around the corners with a lot of rocking going on. This is a nice, simple system. It works great, and it gives you a really smooth ride. So that's what's nice about this mower, is the double tubular frame. The ground speed is adjustable to a high and a low. And then the actual shock absorber comfort of the ride.
Yeah, I'm
fully
actually
adjustable on the arms. When you get in this, you can customize it to exactly how you want it to fit your needs. The foot pedal's adjustable with separate holes to put it in. Little things like we use tapered bearings in the front wheel system, in the wheel and in the front hub, flat free tires. It's a quality mower, well built.
Yeah, that high-speed shift is definitely interesting, especially on properties that you know, you told me about that, and then I saw some videos on it where it kicks in, because we transport a lot, you know, across 30-acre properties.
And during the winter, if you've got leaves down, you can actually have the blades engaged in the high speed and run across the yard real quick. You know, you're not really, normally you're going to be in the low when you go up to 12 miles an hour, and you're going to be fine as far as your normal cutting. Again, this is your adjustment on your firmness and softness of the ride.
Yeah,
but the biggest claim on Scag is going to be the deck itself. These mowers are made in Mayville, Wisconsin, and the deck is literally triple plated. It's a 1/2 inch thick across the top. So when you say that, we actually give our dealers sheets of metal to look at the differences in deck gauges. And this deck is not only a 7 gauge sheet of metal here. It's not only 7 gauge, but it's also plated again and again. So across the top, it's fully supported, basically a 1/2 inch thick, supporting the spindles and all the impact areas. The idler arms and all the things that are moving components are all 1/4 inch thick steel. So we have heavier duty component parts on our mower.
So in other words, you can go through a house if you have to.
The spindles are made at the factory. Most everybody uses an aluminum ball bearing type spindle assembly. We use a cast iron match tapered Timken bearing spindle. What that does is it gives you real good support if you were to impact a surveyor stake or any kind of object out there. These tapered bearings are what pick up that load and absorb it. This spindle sits in a triple plated deck, a 1/2 inch thick, so you're really supported across the whole top of the deck. The spindle itself has a grease fitting with a relief poppet that's spring loaded that opens and lets the excess grease out. The spindle itself is a bolt through design, which means that if you ever booger up the threads or anything down the road, all you do is replace the bolt and the nut. Preloaded with a big jam nut, and it's a 1 1/8 inch shaft going through the spindle. We make them at the factory. They got a 3-year warranty. We don't have spindle failures.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty. I still like the grease pop out deal for overloading. Well, it looks pretty sweet.
So I'm anxious. We got it set up with a mulching kit per your instructions, and I'm anxious to see how it does. It's got a big Kohler 35 EFI engine, 61 inch cut with the full suspension deal going on here, and we're going to run it out to some property and see how it does.
Let's see what happens. Yeehaw! All right, guys. So I am on the way to the property. We just gassed everything up. I'm really interested to see. I know I didn't put my seatbelt on. Don't yell at me. I forgot to put it on. Anyways, we're gonna pull up to the property. I'm gonna start getting some footage on it. We got one of the guys from Ag Pro that are with us. I guess they have like 40-something dealerships around the southeast. So they wanted to come and tow. So we're gonna get there. I'm gonna get some, you know, some really cool footage of the machine before I get it all dirty. It is pretty sweet looking. I'll give it that. I'm always open to things, man. I don't live my life as a pessimist or a skeptic, you know. So I'm all about seeing what happens. I've never run a Kohler motor before ever. It was weird not having a choke on it. I'm used to my Hustler having the emergency brake on the handle, so I kept shutting the mower off, trying to pull it up. This has, you know, a handle for the emergency brake. That's no big deal though at all. So, anyways, let's get here and see what today is like. All right, guys. I'm here with Ron from Ag Pro and Ken from Scag, and I just took this little thing for a ride. It's not little. This thing's gigantic. So far, it's a beautiful machine. I'm pretty impressed. I haven't been on one in years. So they're going to take off. They're going to leave me with the machine. I'm going to keep it for a few days. And Ag Pro, where are all you guys located?
We have 48 locations, but our local location is Middleburg, Florida, 2520 County Road 220 in Middleburg, Florida.
Nice. And that would probably be a rhetorical question if I asked you where you're located.
Well, I'm out of St. Augustine. I've been with Scag 28 years, and I'm proud to be the rep for them. It's a great quality product, and I'm glad Wally's trying it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, guys. We're going to do a video selfie. day mowing. I am on one tank, and that is for 5 straight hours of running and mowing. It's a 30-acre property, and I mean, nobody's gonna argue with me. Of course, it's not 30 flat straight acres of grass, but the entire property is 30 acres. Well, a little over 30 acres. Usually it takes me a tank and a half on the Hustler, which makes sense because that's 2 tanks, you know, 10 gallons. It's a 15-gallon system combined. And this took me almost 1 tank. I'd have to actually say so far the fuel efficiency has been a little bit better if you measure per gallon. Surprised, honestly, because this mower is heavier. Yeah. All right, well, first day of mowing. All right, guys. Second day of mowing with the Scag. I'm even repping the hat today. So I'm going to, I'm running a little late. Meet the guys there. They're already there mowing, or not mowing. They're already there, like doing everything. So I'm gonna go grab the trailer, the mower, and I'm gonna shoot up there and work on day 2. All right. right, guys, so here we have the Scag Cheetah. It's a Velocity Plus and a 61-inch deck. Scag and Ken with Scag, the representative for Scag, his name's Ken, really sweet guy, you saw at the beginning of the video, were kind enough to let me demo this machine. Really, they reached out. Ken had given me a call and said that Scag wanted to contact me and ask me if I would do a review on the machine. Obviously giving me a unit to use for a few days, and instead of me saying what can you give me and I'll do it, I just said sure, why not, man. I'm all about trying something out. Plus, I mean, they gave me a mower for free for a week, you know what I mean, to drive and ride in a brand spanking new machine. Like, honestly, why would you say no? So and I didn't really have the time, but you know, I kind of had the time to do it, so I didn't mind. So anyways, well, let's just jump in the back real quick. First, I will say this is no comparison, and no, they didn't pay me to do this. I mean, giving me a machine for a week is not paying me. I could have said no, man, you know, so they didn't pay me to do this, and I am not comparing this to my Hustler. I'm a Hustler fanboy. I am not comparing this to my Hustler X1 because I will have to say, unfortunately, it's just not even a comparison. And I know my bros that are Hustler guys, I'm sorry to tell you, man, you can't compare this to an X1. Maybe to a Super Z, I don't know. I've never run a Super Z. That was, you know, the next machine I was interested in getting, but I still haven't driven one or been on one. Having said that, I'm not going to compare this to another machine because you really can't compare mowers. You can't. Preference. Some people like things tight, some people don't, some people, you know, everybody likes everything so different, so we can't compare that. So first off, this is something I've never run before, a Kohler motor on a, you know, commercial mower since I've started a landscape business. 35 horsepower, fuel injected, electronic fuel injection, so there's no choke on it. You know, and I wasn't used to that. I was like, oh, where's the choke? And he's like, EFI. It's like, oh my God, that's cool. There's a lot of perks on this thing we'll get to. So it's 35 horsepower, and I'm gonna say this, okay? I mean, I got negative things to say too, all right? But this thing is an absolute monster. This thing is a Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome machine. These guys right here, man, Ron at Ag Pro. Those guys are really cool. They hooked me, you know, through Scag or with Scag. They're the Scag dealer, John Deere dealer. They hooked me up with the machine. Ron was a very sweet guy. You met him at the beginning of the video. You know, offered me to take the machine longer. I just said, you know, just a few days, man, and it'll be cool. I'll drive it, and I'll tell you guys what I think about it. So Ag Pro, check those guys out if you're in South Carolina, Georgia, or Florida. They're a Scag dealer and they're a John Deere dealer. No John Deere's for me, sorry guys. So anyway, 35 horsepower, just a monster, man. I mean, I mowed through we just got nasty rain. You know, we mowed some stuff that was super thick, and this thing just chewed right through it. It was pretty impressive. So what we have back here, I mean, I'm not going to lift everything up because you guys that are familiar know, but if you're not familiar, you can throw this lever down, you can lift this up, you can get easier access to the engine. This right here also pops out with a little bit of force. Oops. A little bit of force that pops out. Sorry, I have one hand on this. Then you can get to everything that you need to get to from the backside. You got to put some force to shut it. So let me say this about the roll bar. I do love that, like everybody else, you know, they've come to realize that you need to put the roll bar in a position that is below the seat. That way when you lay it down, it serves a purpose. If it's above the seat, which they all used to be, there's really no point in having a roll bar lay down, you know, if it's above the seat, because you like to lean over, you don't go underneath things. With that said, I have a problem with it. The reason that this is still up and I didn't lay it down is because when you lay it down, it makes contact with your back screen back here on both sides. So I didn't want to take this brand new machine that had literally, I think, 0.1 hours, not even half an hour on it. I didn't want to have it rubbing against the paint and then, you know, rub surface paint off of this and paint off of that. I would say, Scag, if you could figure out a way to be able to let your roll bars come down and not make contact with this, that would be preferable. I don't know if they all do that, but this one does it, so I lifted it back up. This actually just would not come out. It was just a nightmare to get in and get out, so I don't know if it's something up with this or what. I actually need to get a hammer, but I'm like, I'm not going to hammer it. I'm going to take it back to the dealer. I'm going to let them get this thing back in there. It was a nightmare, man. So I don't know, just maybe a little freak thing. So anyways, that has nothing to do with the awesomeness of the machine. We're working with 15 gallons of gasoline, man. That's nothing. I've never mowed with that much gas, ever. It does come with the wider tires, the 24s, which rock. They're 24 12 by 12, 12-inch rims, 12 inches wide. And then you know how you measure tire. I don't know if you guys know, you measure from, you know, bead to bead. That's how you measure tires. So anyway, you got a really nice wide stance on this machine. It's pretty beefy. I'll get into handling in a minute. Let's get on the engine. 35 horsepower Kohler on this particular model. I wasn't a fan at first, but I'm going to retract that initial thought I had and just say I'm absolutely impressed with that motor. Unbelievable. 15 gallons of gas. Now for me, I mow large condos, and so having a lot of gas is an absolute must. The most I've worked with is 10 gallons on my Hustlers. And I get through a whole tank and then partly into another tank. Then I have to fill up the next day. So let me jump up here and you can check out this nice fancy dashboard. Let's just call it a dash that they have up here. It's basically a diagnostic system. So you have some type of motherboard in there, because you know, if I turn this off and I turn it back on, there you can check everything. You have like oil level, you have water temp, you know, let's see, you have oil level, you have battery, I mean, everything's in there, man. What are the two little people for? I don't know what those two little people are for. I haven't read any manuals, don't make fun of me, okay? So anyway, 8.4 hours of, that means just of this engine running for 8.4 hours. That's mowing 60 acres worth of property. And of course, it's not a solid 60 acres of grass. And people correct me on that. I'm talking about the property, dude. And if you don't understand what a condo association is, that's 30 acres, then honestly, like, I'm not even talking to you right now. And I know that sounds mean, but you know, I get tired of defending that. I mow 2 properties and they're just over and just under 30 acres apiece. I know that a couple of the properties have about 7 straight acres of grass. You know, according to Turf Tech, I know one has about 7 straight acres of grass. The other's about 6 straight acres of grass that's spread out between the property. So that's a lot of gas. I mean, that's a lot of grass and using a lot of gas. So that doesn't just include mowing. I also ran this thing 16 miles an hour in the high gear several times throughout the property, because I transport. I go from one side of the property to the other because there's different phases of the property. Now, you have this ridiculous high gear. Okay, I know some mowers it's just built in, but I think this is actually a really, really good idea to keep the option of 12 miles an hour max on. And if you need to go and transport, like I'll have my guys sit up front and then transport him back to get gas if I see him somewhere, or if I need to go run and turn something on or off or get back to my truck real quick, I throw this ridiculous thing in high gear and you get 16 miles an hour. Is that the fastest mower on the planet? Nope. But is it plenty fast enough to get you where you need to go and make it feel like you got there in a snap? Absolutely. I know some machines, they don't have this. It just runs all the way up to 16 miles an hour plus. I actually like having the separate gears in it. I'm not super big on being a fan with extra parts because they break and all that, but this, I actually really like this. I think that especially when your guys are running these machines, that it's just defaulted in that. And if you wanted to, you could probably drill and put some type of lock right here, some kind of like locking system or a pad, you know, where they're not allowed to bring it back here. And it's always there, you know, but I think the option is pretty sweet. Now, 15 gallons of gas. I mowed 8.4 straight hours of mowing and running around, and we are left with just over a quarter of a tank of gas. I love how each gas tank, I actually like this being analog, basically, you know what I'm saying, instead of digital, because, you know, I run into the digital like on my Hustler, like it flickers and all that, and I can't really tell where the gas is at. But they each have their own separate fuel gauge, which I'll give it to Scag on that. That's pretty sweet. So let's we hit on the engine. we hit on the gas. We can only spend so much time talking about gas and horsepower. Horsepower is off the chain. These gigantic freaking tanks are off the chain. They're awesome. So since we're sitting over here, let's talk about suspension. Probably one of the most awesome suspension systems I've seen or been on personally. See the picture of that spring? That's what's underneath there. I showed it to you in the beginning. We don't need to lift this back up, but I will tell you that the suspension system on this, I mow these commercial properties and there's a lot of tree roots everywhere and all that. I'm going to tell you, in a year and a half on one property and 5 months on the other big property that's bumpy, this is the most comfortable ride that I've done yet. So can I say it's the best, riding machine sitting down on the planet? I have no idea. Would I buy this machine partly based on the comfort of riding, considering I have a bad back? 100% yes. The leveling system, the deck's actually down. I need to raise it back up. So the leveling system is pretty cool on this. I do like it. It's pretty easy. You just get up here, and this is all point of view, guys. You don't need to see my ugly face. So yeah, I took my shoes off. So you do this and you have this handle right here, and that locks it in. If you want to unlock it, push down and unlock it. And it'll actually lock on its own with my hand out here. Boom, it locks. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to do it that way. So it's locked and the deck is up. And then all you do is you just take this pin out and you just move it around to where you want to put it. Okay, so on this pin right here, I had it only happen once and it was my fault, but it's easy to happen. All right, see, you can see the double holes down there? All right, see that right there? Okay, so if you can see it go in there. Look at that. All right, you see it? Right there. Let's see, if this does not go in the hole all the way and it's cocked back this way, then what happens is, all right, push that down, push this back. Your deck is not sitting at 3 3/4 inches. It's come back even further because that pin is leaning in. Okay, see if you can see what I'm saying. All right, that pin is leaning back because you didn't drop it all the way through the hole. That happened to me one time. Of course, it's just getting used to it. And once you're used to things, you don't have the issues so much. But you got to remember, guys, that other people will ride these machines sometimes. So yeah, you have to find the spot and you have to push it all the way down. Make sure it's flush and it's all the way down, or when that comes down, you're going to end up having not the height that you wanted. You can see how this whole thing moves. See up there? This all moves. Now this is different because I am used to just the seat moving. So we have this entire carriage that moves. Let me jump out here. So this entire, from the seat forward, this entire carriage moves right there. At first I thought it was awkward and I didn't like it with my feet bouncing around, but just like anything, after I got used to it, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fabulous. As far as the seat goes, you guys remember when I did, if any of you watched my Hustler reviews, I hated how there wasn't enough room between the handles and the seats. And it was built more for like somebody who was 5'9". That's a huge complaint still on that machine, but it doesn't affect mowing. This right here, I will say, is built for a dude anywhere from 5'6" that weighs 130 pounds to a guy who's 6'6" that weighs 300 pounds. So they definitely did their part in recognizing many different size people sit on these machines. So I really appreciated that. And you have all these really cool, you have this really cool spot here where you can, you can loosen this up and then you can turn this forward. You can take this whole thing, go forward or back. I think that's pretty dope. I like that a lot. Like my boy Floss Carter would say, does tech reviews. That's a win right there. I stole your trademark. That's pretty sweet though. I like having, they put a lot of options. They put a lot of options that I kind of wish that I already had on my machine. So I'm a little disappointed in the options that I liked driving this thing for, a few days that I'm going to actually kind of miss. So the only thing with this motherboard here is as a former mechanic, I just see, I hope, I mean, it's beautiful when the trailer's all dark. This thing all lights up, orange and blue. It's really cool. I just hope that doesn't end up having issues and electronic issues, you know what I mean? Because It's not an automobile motherboard, so I'm not sure how they're going to make sure that these types of advances last, which I like, but the analog versions of, you know, starting up a mower, there's something to be said about that. It's less stuff to break. So I'm gonna be optimistic and say that they put a lot of effort, because look at this machine. I mean, they put so much effort into building this thing. I would really hope that they wouldn't cheap out when it comes to electronics. So I can't speak educationally. I can't have an educated, you know, opinion on, you know, the diagnostic system, because that's really what it is, your start and diagnostic system. So I would assume that they put as much into the quality of that as they have everything else. The emergency brake, I've been used to the last year and a half, you know, in the Hustlers, when you open it up and you close, whenever you open up your handles, it's got a built-in emergency brake, which rocks. So it took me, I mean, Ron and Ken were laughing at me, because every time I got off the machine, I kept just forgetting to put the brake down. So I kept, you know, shutting down. I mean, it's no big deal. We're all used to the emergency brakes. I've just been used to on Hustler where it's built into the handle. So after I got used to it again, it was good to go. Now, as far as how I feel about the overall machine, there's more to get to. But overall, the machine, if you know what I'm saying, it feels very industrial. It's got a very, very, very heavy industrial feeling to the machine. I do not feel like I'm on anything that was built as an afterthought. You know, it's grossly industrial. You know what I'm saying? So handling, I've done John Deere's, which I don't care for John Deere, but I've always given them high points for handling on embankments. Toros, Exmark, Lescos, Hustlers, of course. So out of every machine that I've ever used on an embankment, I'm just sorry, man, I'm gonna have to say that this so far is the best handling machine I've ever used. I went nose first and then turn, which, you know, you don't do, but I did. I just tried it out because I had 6 guys with me in case, you know, we went forward. I just really wanted, you know, to get rigorously, you know, check what would happen if my guys went down nosedive, which they've done plenty of times. I'm not exactly sure why it handled so well. The wide tires can be found on any mower. But I will say that the stiffness, almost to where it's too stiff, but, you know, not. The suspension and the handling on this is so tight that it made my Hustler feel like it was just used and kind of worn down, if you get what I'm saying. It just made my Hustler kind of feel, I don't know, all over the place, really, in comparison. And listen, I love Hustler, man. I mean, that's my machines. I don't own this thing. Would I own this machine? I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. This thing is, I can't even say I'm sorry. This is a badass mower. It just feels heavy in a good way, though, not in a negative way. I had spots that were just soaked in wet. I don't know if I got them on video, but the wide tires, you know, definitely they do run flats on the front, which I love, which is great. Comes out of the box with run flats on here. But it went through and didn't spin or anything. It actually, the heaviness is in a good place because it pushed me through some wet spots to where I normally have to go really, really slow or basically just avoid altogether. So this did really good in some wet, soggy spots that I had because it rained down here last couple of days. But I'm glad it did. We mowed right after a rain, and it started raining on us while we were mowing. And I went back to mow some of the stuff today, and I only had one kind of stripe that I had to remow. So it handled cutting really well. I guess I don't have to tell you guys how good these cut. Obviously, you know, I've used Scags, but I've never owned one. And having been in charge of the Scag as if it were my own, and being very judgmental, I could easily say that it did not do a good job, but it did an amazing job. I just mowed this really quick today. I mowed this full speed 12 miles an hour. I don't do the 16, but this is, you know, my backyard. I did this full speed 12 miles an hour, and it's a very clean, very lean cut. The only thing that didn't cut well is the nut sage that my spray guy needs to get out here and take care of, you know, but that's a different thing. Handling on this, absolutely amazing handling. I'm gonna definitely give it very high marks for handling. Now, as far as cutting, all these wheels down here, all the scalping wheels are solid. They're not hollow, which, definitely helps because it keeps the wheels. I think over time it would keep the wheels in better shape. It's not like X marks where they usually break off and all that. Now, one thing I do not like about the deck, I'm gonna have to say, is that it's open season while everything's spinning. Let me get down here. So anything can come into here, which, on my Hustler, it's got lips right there. It's got debris guards that come up, and I think that that's actually a really good idea to have those. And the only thing I was worried about was, sticks and things like that flopping up in front of me, getting up in here and tearing up a belt or something. So that's probably the only thing about the deck that I don't like, is that it does not have any protection to keep debris from getting into your belts and getting into your pulleys. So, I mean, it wasn't a problem this time, you know what I mean? But it could definitely and easily, be a problem. So, what else can we get into? I mean, there's more things. I learned about the tubular framing. This is actually pretty neat. Okay, you see how the whole front end bolts on right here? At first, I was just like, I like things that are all together, but that's a really good idea, because what happens, because it does happen, when one of your dudes slams into a tree or something and you bend your freaking forks out, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it sucks, make them pay for it. Or if you end up paying for it, you can actually just rip that whole front end and just replace it, instead of trying to have it bent or never fixing it and it always just being there. Because once it's bent, man, you're not going to bend it back, no matter how good the welder is or the machinist that you have. It's just not going to be the same, man. So I actually love the fact that you can unbolt the whole front end and replace it. I think that's a great idea. So let's grade this thing. All right, horsepower, I'm gonna have to give this thing an A plus. Fuel economy, gonna have to give this thing an A, probably an A plus. I usually go through, let's see, about 14 to 15 gallons. Let's see, about 15 gallons of gas, at least. It's usually about 15 gallons of gas mowing both properties. This has 15 gallons and still just under half a tank left on the other tank. So fuel economy, definitely an A plus. The deck, one thing I did not mention on the deck that I noticed immediately is, when you're mowing forward and then debris comes out from underneath the deck and comes all up into your face, when you jump off of the grass and then onto the road, or off a curb, and you're mowing that that angle, you always have the stuff that rushes up in front of you. Didn't even happen on this machine. I thought that was pretty freaking sweet. But one thing I did notice was dog poop likes to fling off of the tires right onto the gas tanks up here. And speaking of gas tanks, here's my other negative. I'm gonna have to bust you on this. You guys notice anything that's missing when you're sitting down? You got a lot to mow. You notice anything that's missing? Anything at all? Anything that's missing? Nothing? How about a cup holder, man? Like, where's the cup holder at? You know what I'm saying? Am I supposed to unbolt this to get a cup holder? You know what I mean? Like, where's the cup holder at? How'd you guys flop on the cup holder, man? Seriously. There's no cup holder on here anywhere. So anyway, I mean, that's my other complaint, is that when this lays down, it touches that, and that there was no cup holder. I'm sure they have cup holder options, or I can just make one. But anyway, so motor A plus as far as horsepower, gas fuel economy A plus, mowing and deck, I mean, A plus, man. It's killer. Suspension and handling A plus. This sounds like a commercial. I'm just being honest with you. Like, I had no idea that I was gonna be this blown away by it whatsoever. And they're like, hey, you want to try this out? I'm like, I don't really care for trying out a Scag. I went and looked at them, and I've driven them, and I know that a lot of people love and adore them, but there's a reason why I didn't. I didn't buy them when I bought my machines last year, but I'm gonna have to go back and say that I know a lot of you are gonna get mad at me, but I'm telling you, man, unless you've ever been on this particular machine, you can't hate on me. I would buy this in a heartbeat. I do have another set of mowers that I'm going to be buying. I haven't tried, you know, their V-Ride, you know, for a 36-inch, but y'all are gonna get mad because I already got some hate for being on the Scag already from some of you guys. But I'm just gonna tell you, man, for what I do, the commercial properties I do, it's not about the 61-inch deck, because you can get a 60-inch, you know, on anything, 61, whatever. But the capacity that this thing has to handle commercial properties like a boss is through the roof. I have to admit, I'm totally impressed. It's a really sweet machine, and I would, you know, sorry, I would absolutely buy this thing. So why do I keep saying sorry? I'd buy it. It's bad to the bone. I may actually consider talking to them about buying this from them. This is pretty dope, man. So here you have it. I talked way too much. From the engine to the tranny to the, well, let's just call it tranny. That's just what, you know, that's just what we call it, man. You know, whatever the engine moves the machine, we call it a transmission in between. But the hydros, the tranny, the deck, the wheels, the suspension, the ride, the deck leveling system, the, you know, from the diagnostics up there, it's a pretty well built, impressively put together machine. And all the guys that have been screaming at me from Scag, you know, that love Scag machines and that ride them, having ridden this particular machine, I get it. This is pretty bad to the bone. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed everything, the video and all that. Thanks again to Ron and Ken from Scag, Ron from AgPro, for lending me the machine. I had a good time with it. This is just my honest review of it. I'm trying to think, like, what didn't I like about it? And it's the two things: no cup holder and not being able to lay that down without, you know, making contact. And you know, gas, fuel, I mean, everything was off the chain, man. I loved it. I loved it. It was great. All right, guys. Well, hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy.